So this was a huge concern with GMOs, and still, of course, remains to be so. And a lot of the second generation proposals target this concern, such as limiting, for example, the transgenesis to chloroplasts and different parts of the plant, claiming that this will prevent the transgenic contamination, or engineering for male sterility or genetic incompatibility with other plants, and actually further modifying the plants, claiming that this will prevent the spread of transgenes. But none of this has been demonstrated to, in fact, be true. And I'd like to, if it's okay, briefly touch upon this term synthetic biology, because I think it comes into play when we're thinking about second generation GMOs or biotechnology proposals. Synthetic biology is this fairly new term and idea that is being pushed by some of the key players, especially in the Bay Area, which is where I come from, as a kind of a revamping and revitalizing of the biotechnology industry. And it is especially indicative of the way that biotechnology companies and the various universities and research institutions conceive of biology, life, organisms, and ecosystems. Now, the synthetic biology proposals also claim to be safer because they say that instead of taking a living organism and modifying it, we will start from scratch. We will create living organisms from nothing. Now, this is actually an extremely rhetorical move, and so far it is not possible to create life from inert chemicals and reagents. What is happening is a bacterium is taken as a starting point and again is being modified. So synthetic biology is actually genetic engineering by another name. But I think to think about the language that they use, for example, they use the languages of writing clean code into a biological machine. So the mechanistic understanding of life is extremely obvious and transparent when you look at this idea of synthetic biology. And they talk about operating systems and talk about DNA as code. And another interesting thing I think that has been happened concurrent to the rejection of GMOs is actually a more mainstream scientific understanding of genetics. And that genetics is not only about DNA. There's a lot more other genetic factors. There's a whole world of epigenetics, which is genetics outside of the realm of DNA. There's RNA and different proteins that actually get transferred during the initial reproductive events between the two parents. So there is a developing and improving understanding of genetics, which these second generation GM crops have not even attempted to come to grips with.
Yeah, thanks. And a part of the second generation technology, we'll be using that word loosely now, I guess, is the drought resistance, of course, vis-a-vis climate change. That's the big claim that, you know, because as we know, the IPPR report says that most of the, you know, developing countries, 80% of the developing countries will be experiencing the climate chaos, and a lot of that will result in droughts. But if not, if all the GM claims are false, but we do know we need some drought resistance seeds, what do we have as an alternative? And your countrymen just recently won the prize for developing such a strain with traditional crops. Can you speak more about that and the other alternatives and how we go forward to adapt to climate change?
This morning, I participated in a workshop organized by IIED. And at that workshop, somebody called Professor Collier came. I think he came a bit late, and he said that he was late because he came from Monrovia, Liberia. And he basically said that, well, Africa has to adapt because it's a destitute, it's a poor continent, and the soils are tired, and the seeds are tired, and the communities are hopeless. So the best solution for Africa is GM. he said it. I don't know, that's a problem, you know, people go in, they just fly in, they look with their glass, they fly out, and they have all these ideas. Well, I'll tell you a practical example of a solution. In the northern part of Africa, I'm in Ethiopia, there is a place called Tigray. Tigray is one of the places which are challenged by drought most of the time. So an institute called Institute for Sustainable Development, which was led by Dr. Toll, I think when it started, Vandana was there also. They've started an experiment with 4 communities. I think in 3 years it was implemented in about more than 100 communities. Now it's a program for the whole country. What they did was to heal the soil first. Healing the soil. And healing the ecosystem. So they started soil and water conservation activities. They started planting trees and other plant materials to increase the plant biomass of the area. And they used those plant biomass to do compost. So they had enough compost and they put that compost into the soil. So, and it was an experiment. On one plot of land, they have agreed with farmers that, you know, on one plot of land, they didn't put anything. Second plot of land, chemical fertilizer and pesticide and whatever. On the third, only compost. And throughout the years, until there was an assessment after 10 years. And the whole ecology has healed. Water that has dried out has started coming in. The productivity has improved a lot. So you don't believe what you see now. And that started 10 years ago, before all this talk of climate change came in, you know. So if you ask the right question, you'll have the right answer. You'll have the right answer. Seed is part of this whole system. You have to heal the ecosystem, that's very much important. And you have to support the local community also. The community has to strengthen. And there is health in the community, there is livelihood in the community, there is energy demand in the community. Which of these will address, which of these will GM address? And there is also governance. That the community has to decide about their future, on their future. So I think a farmland, if you think of only, or if your solution is only about the farmland, you'll solve nothing. A farm is part of the whole picture, a part of the whole system. There are people there, there is a bigger ecosystem there. So we have to have an ecosystem approach. That's a must. I think that's a solution. And we have seen this proving to be right in many parts of Africa also. Recently we visited a farm in Ethiopia, in the southern part of the country. And there were 23 crops in 1 hectare of land, 23. Root crops and crops. And GM, I'm sure, will substitute that. GM, I'm sure, will bring the fertilizers, nitrogen fertilizer that I've said. You know, all the things, you know, transportation system and everything, that introducing GM will exacerbate climate change. And it won't be a solution. I think that's my view.